That was funny though. Anyway,
Good
thanks, Joe.
old Poway kid.
So guys, I mean, at this point in time, I really wish I had a bunch of information to share, but there's not a ton out there. I think obviously you guys are all aware that July 20th, the CIF state will be making an announcement with regards to if fall sports will be starting on time, and if they're not going to start on time, they are going to propose an alternate start date for fall sports. And again, they'll pick another date. Well, they'll evaluate whether or not that alternate date will work. And then if that's not going to work, then most likely they're going to look at doing a model where there's multiple sports starting in the spring, 3 seasons of sport, somewhere starting maybe December, but they will play all 3 seasons of sports separately, with the individual out of obviously modified seasons. So that's kind of the discussion that's happening now. But again, that's only if we get to these 2 benchmarks here. The first one starting on July 20th. I think all of us are hoping that there is some good word that we are going to start on time. But as things start happening differently, like many of you are talking about, obviously I think we're all wondering if that's really even feasible to say we would start fall sports, July 30th here when football's supposed to start. But as of now, that's what we're planning for. I think the bigger questions I get is more surrounded like kind of what you guys are talking about. How are schools doing things? Some school districts are doing stuff, other school districts aren't. I know that's kind of down in Sweetwater where I'm from, where we're a pretty heavily impacted area. And so they haven't made the decision to let some schools come back on and start working with kids in their summer workouts and summer programs, which is all our off-season stuff. Other districts have. It just, again, depends on the district and the school. But those things aren't monitored by CIF. Each of those are monitored by the school site and the district. So ultimately, what's going on, what people are doing, that's all is the responsibility and under the guidance and direction of each school district or school site, and they should be adhering to the directives that have been put out by state and county health departments. There's a lot of stuff going on in the youth and travel world right now, and I've been on some conversations here with the county and and heard some specifics that they gave with regards to what can be going on and what can't be going on under the day camp model, because that is the only model right now that's out there. And it's even a very gray area whether athletics are permitted in that. But again, that's under the guidance and responsibility of any school that starts letting their kids come back and work on their campuses. So that's a gray area. And again, it's the same for the entire state, not just San Diego. And it's pretty clear that there's not to be like intermixing of groups or competition, but I know that's going on all over the place. So fortunately for me, I'm not monitoring the youth and travel stuff out there. That's not my responsibility. But I think the difficult thing for you guys as coaches, it just sends a mixed messages to all your parents, that have kids in youth sports and kids in the high schools and are questioning you guys in our schools of, hey, my kid's out there, playing and doing things that are questionable, whether or not they're supposed to do, and why aren't the schools doing anything? And that kind of puts everyone in a real tough position. But ultimately, again, like I said, it's up to each district and look at what health and safety guidelines they want to follow. And then it's really their responsibility to monitor it with those kids. And, some schools, again, are allowing kids back on campus, and then other coaches I know aren't. And it's frustrating, I know, for a lot of those coaches that are like, hey, I'm looking and seeing kids working out on, Twitter or these other things. And it's definitely an interesting time, guys. And I know we all want the same thing. We all want to get back out there and get back to it. But I think it's imperative that all of our folks are practicing health and safety measures that, are in the best interest of our kids and our families. And I have a travel ball daughter myself who's just starting to come back and practice a little bit. And I think it's great that all those kids are doing that. But I hope all those people are cognizant, like all the messages that are out there. I'd sure, hate to see people out there in a 6U soccer program screw it up for all the high schools, and they're not able to play in a haste of getting this, 6 or 7-year-olds back out there playing. And that's my big concern. But again, it's moving slow, and it's definitely some interesting times ahead. But as of now, guys, in my long-winded response there, the next benchmark date is July 20th. We have a commissioners meeting on Thursday to talk about kind of where we're at and kind of start planning and seeing what those things are looking like. And I'm sure over the next week or two, we have 2 more that'll probably happen to figure out what July 20th is going to look like and what answer the state's going to have. But, for many of you that know in this section, we have different regions of San Diego County and Imperial Valley who are part. I mean, Imperial Valley just went back into basically phase 1 of this whole kind of restrictions. What's put them way behind. So that's even a bigger concern. So there's lots of stuff to come into play. I think as I heard Mike talking about it, I think the biggest challenge for districts right now is just getting kids back on campus for school. If that's going to happen, I think athletics would be great and is important, like all extracurricular activities are. But I think districts and schools have their hands full just figuring out how they're going to get school started here on time. So, if you guys have any questions, I'll answer them as best as I can, is what I know. But again, a lot of it's just kind of, we're all in the same boat, wait and see, and that's the hardest part, because if it was a regular year, I'd know exactly where we're at and I'd know exactly what we're doing and preparing to go here at the end of the month. But it's not like any year we've ever had. And so it definitely makes it challenging. But
Joe, I have a question. I coach 3 sports. So I coach in the fall, and I coach in the winter, and I coach in the spring.
Sure.
So is it a case-by-case basis? Well, I coach girls golf in the fall, so I'll use that as an example. So football can't play. Is it going to be an all or nothing thing? Or maybe girls golf gets to play, maybe girls volleyball and football don't, cross country okay? Or is it going to be an all or nothing thing?
Great question. And I know that's been asked a lot, what would fall into the lower risk category, like you mentioned, golf, tennis, cross country, those things. Back when we had our commissioners meeting prior to our last announcement where, hey, we're basically on hold till July 20th, there was many different things discussed. I think the one thing they want as much as possible is consistency across the state, and they're not going to do anything until we're permitted, all sections are permitted to go. And then even when that happens, it's going to be up to each district as to whether or not they elect to have their kids participate in athletics. And that could, obviously present challenges in itself. But to answer your question, there was some discussion, that could be a possibility. Those low risk sports may be able to start and go. But again, a lot of that depends on what the health department says. And quite frankly, looking even from our own section's perspective, you have some districts that may not even have kids on campus. And to start any sport where you don't have kids on campus and kids that could potentially not be at school or have transportation issues to be able to get there, I think it's going to be a real challenge without kids being on campus and those teams to start those lower risk sports. But it's not out of the question. I just, at this point in time, I don't have an answer, only because, I know there's a lot still to be determined here over the next few weeks to what's going on. But that, just to want you to know that's been discussed, and I've heard different coaching groups have asked me that same question regarding those lower risk sports. And so I don't know, it's a wait and see for now. But that has been talked about.
Well, personally, I think it should be all or nothing. I don't think my girls should be able to play golf and the guys can't play football.
It's tough.
I mean, that's just me personally.
And
I think everybody should be able to play, or nobody should be able to play.
I think it puts everyone in a real tough situation when you're doing that, and not only from a district's perspective, but a section perspective. That's tough when some groups are getting a benefit and others aren't. And to say, hey, I was a senior, but unfortunately I played a higher risk sport, I didn't get to do it, and the other ones did. That's a tough call. So that's all got to get weighed here before a final decision's made.
So you made an interesting comment. You said that even if CIF and a section say, yes, we're a go, each district could potentially say no. But I mean, or is it even each school could potentially say no? Is that what I heard correctly?
I'm going to say, when I say school, I mean like a non-district wide school. I don't think there's many districts out there that are going to allow some schools in their district to participate and others not. So, when I talk about schools, typically private schools, singletons out there, those would be the ones that have to make their decision that have a single school district, something like that. But the big districts, it's up to them when the calendar is released and say, okay, we got the green light to go, are they actually ready to go, and can they go? So I think that's where the Imperial Valley is real nervous, because they're, okay, hey, say something great happened and things loosened up in San Diego, and all of a sudden a determination had to be made or was made saying, hey, San Diego or the whole state's deciding they can go. Imperial Valley's like, hey, wait a minute, we may not be there because we're so far behind, and it's affecting us so much. So those are all things that have to get weighed, and it's not just San Diego in that boat. Other sections have the same thing where, they're in different stages all over, there's different sections, southern section, other places. So it's going to be, I think all of us are to have that green light. We're all going to have to say the majority of our schools are all going to be able to go. Otherwise, I don't foresee it happening. It's not going to be hey, half our section can go, let's get the green light and go. I don't think that's what our state executive director wants, and I know that's not what I want for our section or to the other commissioners. So
yeah, I don't even know how the Palomar League, because you have like 5 different districts that might comprise the Palomar League.
Yeah.
What if 2 say yes and 3 say no?
Yeah.
Playing the same team a lot.
That's a reality. And I heard you guys talking about the community colleges too.
Yes.
Yeah, they have their hands full trying to figure that out on this July 17th announcement. Southwestern down here's already came out and made the statement, hey, we're not playing anything at all during the fall. And their whole, for Sweetwater District, that's tough because, they use all their pools, they do everything there. And so that really puts a hamper on what they're doing. But again, to make a decision like that, I'm assuming they have some pretty good knowledge of what may be happening, because, they can't be the only team that would be out there to play football in the spring. So I don't know. It's definitely interesting.
Joe Hunt.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, Joe is, my name's Adam Paul. I cover sports out here in East County. Yeah. And I talked because I used to work at Grossmont College in the athletics department. And when this all came up, I was talking to a couple of the people that I know that still work up there. And they said, yeah, everything, they're just on a holding pattern, like you said, until the 17th. So going back to, to the example of that, what happens if, say, the 20th, everything's A-okay, but a district like my district out here at Grossmont decides to say, you know what, it's not safe enough. I mean, how does that work?
Well, that's a great question, and I think that would have to. That's one of the things that need to get looked at. Of what if a district does say, hey, we want to do something different, and we can't make this calendar work. Is there another calendar that may work? Can we play sports at a different time? I mean, obviously, you got to think about, okay, they wanted to do something different and create their own calendar. I mean, we'd have to look at the legalities of what that is, what a master calendar would look like, and then obviously they're taking that at a risk where they may not have other teams to play outside their own conference, and you may have a league champion, and that would be the extent of that. So those are different scenarios that have been talked about and questions that have been asked. But I think those are going to be some more serious conversations we have next week of what are options for those type of situations that come up, and how would each section address those. Because those are, again, realities that wouldn't just be faced by the San Diego section. I'm sure those are being looked at across the other 9 sections across the state as well, because those are realistic questions that are being asked out there.
Well, and we're going to be probably, as school districts, we're probably going to be more on the restrictive side and the cautionary side. Yeah. And then we were already battling not to lose these kids to full-time travel ball.
Right.
I mean, if those knuckleheads, no offense to anybody that coaches travel ball, but I mean, if they go out there and then just, good, we're not going to have high school softball this year, so we'll just play travel ball tournaments all year, and then and the next thing you know, we lose all of our kids. I mean, they got to go by the same rules as we do, don't they? I mean, seriously. Well,
if they did, you wouldn't see the stuff that's going on right now going on. I'll be honest with you. So I mean, that's the hard part for me. I got kids that are up playing friendlies here in San Diego that I know. And I heard loud and clear from the health department that no intermixing of groups or no competitions. Yeah. That's not even talking about high school. That's talking about, kids coming back in the day camp model, because that's all they have. And I'm thinking, wow, people are missing the boat on that. But again, I'm not regulating that. I'm just watching. Again, my bigger concern is, like you say, and I got a daughter that's just getting started back, in travel as well. So for me, I'm excited for her, but at the same time, from a holistic thing for all our high school kids. Like I said earlier, I'd hate to see some, some breakout happen in some little youth soccer league where they're playing games and doing stuff that sets the high schools back even further. And, not that I'm thinking the importance of health and getting out there and being active, but really my concern is these kids who have already been, been affected last spring, and then now potentially having them be jeopardized this fall or this year coming up because, youth and travel groups in their haste to get back there make things more difficult for us. That's going to be a problem, and I know it is for our other commissioners and our state executive director. So we're all hoping that these folks that are out doing stuff right now, and even the kids that are coming back on high school campuses, are adhering to the guidelines that are out there. And again, they're very loose, guys. I will tell you, there's nothing that really talks about athletics at all in those guidelines. If you read them, even the CIF stuff that's out there from the return to play, they put as some just kind of basis or recommendations for schools. It doesn't talk anything about competitions or anything. It's basically all just centered around conditioning and the slow return to play. So, it's definitely uncharted times, and there's a lot of self-accountability for groups because no one's out policing it right now. And that goes for our high schools as well. That responsibility in the off season goes to those schools and those districts to manage that, making sure they're not putting their kids in a bad situation. So,
well, I can speak for the organization I belong to, the outside of high school. We're trying to not participate in friendlies. We're trying not to participate in any tournaments. What we're trying to do as an organization is maintain the team, work with the team, build the girls up, get them out exercising, form the teams. Like in my instance, I'm starting a brand new 16U team. So we're not looking to play until the end of August when we start the hopefully the league starts.
Yeah.
But we're abiding by the rules. I mean, I got hand sanitizer bottles in the dugout. I'm wiping down the balls before and after practices, and with the Clorox wipes, the bats, the tees, the nets, everything's getting wiped down every practice. So we do the things that we can do from my organization standpoint. Now I know, and everybody on here knows, that there's other organizations that are not doing that, and are going full bore playing.
Yeah.
So, and it's tough for me,
right? We're not
right?
talking Arizona or Nevada here. We're talking within San Diego County, Riverside County. Those things you're right. Those things are happening. So
and they're not being shy about it. It's all being streamed. I mean, it's all over Twitter, Facebook. I mean, it's not like they're trying to do it in the shadows. They're doing it.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, I'm sure you guys in your organization trying to do things right. The tough thing is some of your kids are thinking, oh, wow, well, I got a chance to go to this other team and play and do this stuff. And that's what makes it more difficult for those folks that are doing it right. And that's probably the most frustrating thing about the whole deal is
it's not the kids
that are doing it right. It's making it tough for you. Absolutely, man. I understand that 100%.
The parents want to go play.
Yeah, they do.
Exactly.
I run a camp at Francis Parker every summer, and I'm getting pressure from the people at Francis Parker that run the camps and do all that kind of stuff to do my camp and just limit the amount of girls. They want me to do my camps with 5 kids, and they want me to do it consecutively for different weeks with 5 kids. They don't want me to have more than 5 kids, because with 2 coaches and 2 of my varsity players helping out, that I reached the limit at that point. But I said no, because I just don't feel comfortable doing that.
Where do they come up with these limits anyway? What's the difference between 12 kids and 15 kids, or 10 kids and 12 kids? Right? Who the hell made up that rule?
Yeah, we're not allowed to have more than 10 at Francis
They
Parker.
roll the dice and it came out 12, and they're okay, 12 kids.
12 has been the number that the state and county health has used as a kind of a maximum amount of group, kids in a group.
Yeah.
They're not at this point in time in what they call their first phase of kind of reintegration, or allowed to go beyond that. But I've seen football stuff going on in KUSI, and there's a few more than 12 kids out there.
Yeah.
I thought it just had something to do. There was 11 kids on a soccer team. That's all.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing I think that frustrates most of us, Joe, is that we're all watching this stuff happen. I mean, the news is going out and and promoting it. like you said, they're, they have these 7-on-7 camps, and the KUSI is out there, look what we're doing. Look what these guys are doing. They're running these camps even during this pandemic. And, as coaches, we're like, Jesus Christ, we can't even go on campus.
Yeah.
We can't even do we can't even get 2 kids out there to do a batting practice. I mean, do training. And
my favorite text message I get all the time, hey, aren't you guys going to stop that? And I'm like, that's not my responsibility. That's off-season stuff's off-season. When that calendar starts and it's CIF time, then yeah, it's our responsibility. But this is all, once those districts, even their kids should all be AAU and doing stuff here in the summer under 600.2, which is outside of season of sport guidelines. It's really, that's still that school district's decision to let those kids come on campus and do that. So that's where the responsibility lies, whether it's their school affiliated team or letting some youth team come on there and, practice on their school facilities. I mean, they're taking that responsibility of opening their schools and allowing that. So when you ask who's monitoring it, the big answer is nobody. I mean, I don't see the health department out there driving around in trucks, shutting stuff down. But, ultimately when something happens and some kid gets sick and there's some big outbreak and, they got to deal with it. I know not to pick on Helix, but they got started, had a kid, get COVID, tested positive for COVID, and they had to shut their whole stuff down for the whole summer. So, it's uncharted times and it's very difficult to manage it all I'm sure from a county's perspective. I think, whenever they kind of green lighted all this stuff to happen, I don't know if they really figured it would go this fast, and, it's pretty unmanageable, but again, I'm just hoping it doesn't create more issues for us and set us back to where we're trying to get to. That's again, my big concern. And as long as people are doing it right and taking the health and safety measures, that's great. Kids are getting back out there, and that's good. But I'm the more stuff happened, I think all you guys saw today, bars shut down supposedly, and this type of thing, that we're not going in the right direction. That's what concerns me about hit this July 20th date and hopefully being able to do something here this fall. So that's hard.
Well, AAU's loving it. $16 a kid, right?
Yeah, that's it right there.
Plus insurance. They're loving it.
AAU we're not covered under our normal insurance. They're making
No, you buy your own. You buy more AAU insurance.
You have to buy
more
insurance for the pandemic, for the virus. It's separate.
AAU's making you do that?
Yes.
That's the last thing I got, the last email from them.
Well, it took me about 5 visits and 5 different conversations to AAU before they even told me that they're resuming their operations, because I had talked to the Western region guy and I talked to him 3 different times. He said, California's not going. And then some coach got
go down to the Seoul and see what's not going on.
AAU
playing hoops, for crying out loud.
Yeah,
the AAU got them to say, yeah, we are. I mean, yeah, they are, honoring it and honoring all the things that, including insurance that goes with membership. But that's the first time I've heard that they're charging extra insurance. I hadn't heard that. And the teams that I know that are doing that, I haven't heard that they've been told they have to, but none of our Sweetwater District schools are doing anything. So I don't know where they're at.
Well, I'll check it out when I get home.
Yeah. It's definitely worth looking into if they are making that, because that would be something different they usually haven't done in the past.
Joe, my question is to you, I guess. Are you taking a year-long approach to this, or are we going fall at a time? Because what my concern is that, we say, okay, let's prioritize football, which would push back winter sports, which would push back, I absolutely hate the idea of trying to play all 3 seasons of sport in the spring. Like, I'd rather not, because, it's just not going to be, space and the crowds and all that.
Well, dual athletes.
That's
dual sport athletes.
Dual athletes.
Dual coaches.
Well,
Dual
I'll be
coaches.
honest with you.
Yeah,
They're not necessarily prioritizing football. I think they're just prioritizing athletics in general. And there will be no model, myself included, wouldn't support any model that would make kids have to choose one sport over another. So if it was something like a worst case scenario where they had 3 sports during the spring, it would be 3 distinct seasons, obviously very modified, 8 weeks or so, where there'd be a fall season, then another 8-week winter season, then another 8-week spring season. So those kids wouldn't have to choose between sports. Obviously, you'd still be looking at some sort of an overlap like you have now, between fall and winter and spring. But I'm not in any favor that tries to push, 3 seasons sport into 2, and then kids miss out on a sport. That's nothing I would look at. I don't think the state is either. They're not entertaining anything like that. They're looking at being able to have 3 distinct seasons of sports to not put kids in that situation where or coaches for that matter, where they have to choose between the sport.
Yeah, I feel like if you're going to push football back a month and say, okay, we're going to start October, then all seasons have to collapse a month, and then we just, as long as we know the finite amount of time we have to plan to, we can make that happen. But
and I agree, and I'm still having a hard time, just personally. I mean, it's just my personal thing. Those poor kids in the spring already missed a whole season last year, and then all of a sudden to turn around and give them another modified season. That's tough, especially your last 2 years of high school. That's what you deal with as a spring athlete. But I still if it comes down to that or allowing all 3 seasons of sports to operate, yeah, obviously we'd want to do that because I wouldn't want any folks to miss their stuff. But yeah, if we don't start on time, any situation is going to not be ideal, to be honest. But I mean, we're hoping just there's a pathway to at least having athletics this year, and trying to get kids back on campus too. I mean, that's going to be a big enough challenge for districts. I think probably I'm sure everyone wants sports to happen too if they do, but right now I don't think that's on the forefront of what people are thinking about. With the start of school coming up here, it's just being able to get the doors open and get business running. So we got our hands full, guys. I'm going to tell you right now, we got our hands full.
Yeah, real quick, because I was taking notes. I want to make sure I got this right. And in lieu of all of that, let's say that, yes, school opens and campuses are going and sports are happening. You kind of mentioned, and I want to make sure I got this right. Are each of the sections going to model themselves the same? So what I'm saying is, the San Diego section going to do the same thing that Southern section does? Because we're pretty close to my school. We're pretty close to drive up into the Temecula, Lake Elsinore, and play Southern section schools. And so I can see, just like travel ball, right? Just like sports going on during the summer, if some schools are closed and they're not going to participate, well, I might as well take my team to Riverside. I can see high schools doing that. So I wanted to know, is Southern section and San Diego section, are they going to mirror each other with the way that they do?
The plan is a statewide consensus of what the plan is going to be. It's not going to be a section by section deal. That's why we're doing this, and all 10 commissioners are going to want and need to be in alignment and agreement on that. But again, nothing's going to happen until the state says competition's back online. But the intent is for everyone to be on the same page with that, not fragmented throughout the state, because that would be difficult if it was.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying. I thought that's what you said, but I want to make sure.
Yep.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
So,
Yeah, definitely.
So my next question is for you, Joe. Has how, because I have friends that are managers of movie theaters, and they've been told they're allowing X amount of people into the theater per screening whenever they reopen their theaters. Has that been thrown out, a number thrown out for football, let's say they play? Because, a lot of these schools depend on that gate money.
As does the CIF section operate.
Right.
So when it comes to playoff time. So yeah, that's how we exist. That hasn't been discussed. But again, that will be not just a CIF decision. That's going to be a statewide decision. They're not even having athletes at professional contests, right? Or fans. So again, that's all going to be up to the state and what they allow for any type of athletic contest or competition. I would assume it's going to be minimal, especially here in California, if and when that comes back online. So, but again, they haven't had any discussion of that, and we're not even speculating really on what that would look like because we just don't know.
Sure.
So actually, like July 20th, you guys meet and that'll be the next big announcement, and
Everyone
could be
on the edge of their seats. Yeah, July 20th.
right, and then it could be just a lot of the same, right? We don't know.
Could be, hey, not starting on time.
We're not
Here's
starting
the
on
next
time.
date. We'll talk to you in 3 weeks to say, are we going to be able to hit that benchmark or not? And
Okay.
that's
So
what
at least on July 20th, we'll get we're going to start on time or we're not.
Yeah, or we're pushing back. Exactly. But we're not going to keep doing that every month. So, quite frankly, there'll be probably one additional date to say, okay, we can't start on time. Here's the additional date. If that doesn't work, then it's going to be a spring model. Because if we do go to that, obviously there's a lot of work that needs to be done to plan for that, get schedules together to that. There's a lot of work for school districts to do to just prepare for what a spring sports year would look like. So we can't just decide November 15th. Well, it's not going to work out for the fall. Let's plan for December.
Okay.
January.
Yeah, I got you.
That's why we're not going to just keep, pushing it down, kicking the can down the road here. It's going to be, if it, worst case scenario, we get to this alternate date, it doesn't work, then it's going to be just, starting to put all our stuff to prepare for what a spring schedule would look like. And we've never done that before. No one has. So that will take a lot of work for not just school districts, for the CIF office too, to put a calendar together and think about what rankings are going to look like if we can have playoffs, what playoffs will look like. There's a lot to that.
Go ahead, Tony.
And transportation as well, huh, Joe?
Absolutely, Tony. Yeah, man, that's part of the problem. Look at Sweetwater District. We're not even have kids on campus till minimum after Labor Day, and that's if they can, get all the stuff and figure out how they're going to bring kids back, what they're going to have to do every day as check-ins, how many kids. They're talking right now, maybe 10 kids in a classroom, and rotating schedules where kids are either on campus 1 week or a couple days out of the week and kids aren't. It's kind of hard to run practice if you don't have kids on campus or at school. It's definitely creates a huge issue and a huge equity issue for a lot of our districts. That's a challenge if you live in a district like city schools and where kids can go all over the place and don't have transportation. How do they get to school to practice if they're not in school during the day? So there's lots of challenges, guys, we're just scratching the surface. There's probably a bunch of stuff out there we're not even thinking about that would be hurdles we'd have to face whenever this comes up and going.
Joe, one question that the coach that had to leave, she was asking, because she's a volleyball coach, and she was asking, okay, her sport's normally in the fall, and her club players would, they take time off during the fall and they start back up in winter and go through spring. If you move volleyball to spring or late winter, whatever, are the rules going to be changed so they could do both? Are they going to stick with 600 and how does that kind of work? If the season
we'd have to look at that, Mike. We'd have to look at that because our section is the only section that doesn't allow practice. Rule 600 across the board allows kids to practice in other sections during their season of sport, but they can't play in games or competitions. Ours is stricter. We don't even let kids practice with their team. That's a big problem. So that may get looked at, may get reevaluated. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the answer.
We've had this conversation lots of times, and now you're in charge.
It very well could, and but again, we'll have to cross that road when we get to it and see what the impact is. But that could be an option, Mike.
Okay.
You got to keep it. It's the only thing that gives those kids a day off.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm not. This is a unique situation. I'm not advocating one way or the other, but it does put our kids at a disadvantage. It's a different topic, but it is. But in this situation, what if, like I said, the club volleyball season is November through June, and now these kids are maybe playing high school in January. Now,
right.
Do they have to quit their club team? Is there? What would the scenario look like? I think
it's a good question, Mike. It's something that's going to have to be looked at. It's a good question.
Joe, has there been any discussion about possibly if we have to push some of the more contact sports back? Has there been any discussion about moving some of the non-contact sports like baseball and softball to the fall?
They haven't really talked about that. Those are like baseball, softball. They consider those medium risk. So I think the only thing they were in an initial discussion, we're talking about the lowest risk sports starting, and that was like golf and tennis and cross country, those type of things. I don't think people are in favor of just saying, okay, let's look at our sports and mix all of our sports offerings for a year here and trying to do that. I don't if anyone's looking at a scenario like that, I think they're more looking at if we can't go, then they're looking at the modified model to happen. But again, I don't think anything's off the table. I think once the commissioners start talking and there's a better idea of things. I mean, where it's kind of going into those meetings, it's kind of like, hey, let's all brainstorm this and figure out what scenario works best for our coaches, our kids, and our students and families. So I don't think anything's off the table, but I know in previous discussions talking about big wholesale changes of the season of sport and those things we're very well received by the other commissioners. They kind of didn't necessarily like the idea of that. So, but again, I wouldn't say it's off the table. If we find ourselves having to come up with alternatives, I think we'll look at anything, just to make it work.
All right, thank you.
Are there any particular triggers? Are there any specific triggers that you guys as commissioners are looking at? I mean, to make the decision on the 20th, is there something concrete that you guys are looking at?
We're following health and safety guidelines from the state, and that's what Ron DiCetti's looking at. I mean, he's looking at guidance for them to say, hey, it's safe enough for us to start talking about offering sports and doing those things. And until that happens, then we're not going anywhere. That's why the more everything's happening here and it feels like we're going backwards in some regions of the state, that doesn't it's making me a little nervous when I start seeing those things happen, that hey, we're going the right direction here, where I thought maybe a few weeks ago we were. Definitely taking a different turn here the last 2 weeks.
Joe, if they go to these alternate school days for the kids, will they waive that you have to be in class that day in order to play or practice?
Well, there's no rule to that. That may be a district rule, but I think that's an old witch's tale that my coach used to get me with when I was playing. The got to be in school 4 periods rule. So the only thing that I think would impede a kid from doing that, if there was some disciplinary action against them where they actually suspended from school. But really, there's no rule to say a kid can't attend school and not play in a contest.
Okay.
So that's not a bylaw, or that's
a district rule.
We have that district. We have that in our district.
Yeah. Yes.
That's a
Maui High rule, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
We got the campus police chasing us around.
Yeah. So that's not a CIF bylaw. That would be a district or a league or conference bylaw if that was in there for them.
So it's not a problem from your area then?
No.
Thank you.
No.
If you went to a spring model, would softball be May, June?
It would be. And I think they're looking at an 8-week or 9-week season for each of those. So it would definitely be the very end, starting potentially mid-April and taking you, probably early April, late March, taking you through, I think it looks like the last date's similar to what it is now, finishing the first week in June. So, there would be some overlap of these sports here, which again is not ideal, but to be able to get something in, and I know most coaches have said for them, playing more league games and more league contests is more important than necessarily a lengthy playoff or even a state playoff. So I think coaches are pretty clear and evident that was where their priority was, if there was some hierarchy of what they'd like to see with these modified schedules. So I think that's all going to be taken into consideration, because that wasn't just in our section either. I think that was throughout the state. The same sentiment from coaches was we'd rather play more league contests than again rush to some playoff system where everyone had to suffer a shortened season for a lengthier playoff. So I think that's something that'll definitely be considered. But yeah, you got to figure 8 to 9 weeks for a season with as much as you can get in that time.
When is was December the start of the spring model, or January?
Again, in part of the discussions, I think they were looking dependent on what the scenario is, and barring any further recurrence or flu season hampering us even being able to do that. I think in a perfect world, if it comes to that where we'd have to start, I think a lot of people would like to start in December, meaning, okay, we can do some, if we can start before we go to Christmas break and get our 10 practices in, and potentially during the Christmas break, maybe they do some volleyball tournaments or do some field hockey tournaments. And then we come back after New Year's, that first week of New Year's, and start league play. I think that would be an ideal scenario, because again, if we don't actually start anything till after the start of the new year, that just really condenses that time there, losing that month of potentially being able to start before Christmas and utilizing Christmas break. So, that's it all is contingent, on what the state of the state of our state, so to speak, is, and hoping that this flu season just doesn't just wipe us all out and, we go 20 steps backwards. So it's hard, guys, because I want to give you some good answers and say, hey, here's what I think, and but I'm just speculating if I do that, because it's a great unknown, and we're gonna be prepared as we can. Like I said, if we go on time, we go on time. If we don't, then we want to put all our efforts into whenever the date we get the green light is. We're prepared, and none of us skip a beat, and we just are able to hit the ground running and go, and not chasing our tails around trying to figure out, oh, we didn't think about that or think about that. So that's why we're trying to tread lightly and make sure whatever scenario happens, we're completely prepared, and all of our schools and our coaches are ready and informed, and our officials associations, for that matter, are all ready to go. So we'll see what happens when we get there.
I know this, I put in the chat room, the chat says, if we get, we play for 2 months, we're going to, schedule 6 games against Francis Parker, Mount Carmel, and Sage Creek a week. But would the points be altered, based on the fact we're instead of, 13 weeks, we're only going to be playing 6?
Absolutely, Mike. That's a good point. And yeah, we'd have to look at how many contests, all that stuff, minimum number of contests, or what rankings would look like, how you would try to do that. There's lots of things that would have to come into consideration. And the thing that we're going to face too is, if I'm a coach and I'm in a condensed season, then I'm going to try to play as many non-league games as I can too. I want to play almost every day if I can. Shoot, that would be great. But the reality is an official shortage and having enough officials to cover all that. So we want to make sure there's equity, and not some specific groups are getting, hey, they were first in, so they get to play all the non-league games. We got to have a system in place and work with the officials to make all that work too, because everyone's going to want to get as many games as they can in those condensed seasons. So we know that, and again, it's going to take some coordination with the officials, and we'll see how that affects for schools to play outside their matrix days.
We'll be having home series against them teams.
Well, I was just gonna say, like mini little tournaments. Well, hey, come to my field. We're gonna hold 4 games today. We'll do back-to-back double headers, and just have a round robin kind of thing going on.
Joe, you mentioned the officials. I have a question then, because have the officials looked at? Have there been any concerns brought on by the officials associations? Because the ones that I've noticed, all the games aren't young people; they're older demographic. All the sports. Yeah, for all the sports.
That's not limited to any sport. To be honest, you're right.
No, I know, but what are they doing? Are they getting?
Todd Casson and I had a conference call with them last week. We just met with all the assigners and the association presidents and had a discussion with them, and kind of gave them just an overview of where we're at, and as much information we could share with them, and see if they had any concerns. And they didn't have a ton at the time, but I will tell you, what you bring up is a very valid concern. We're not even, most people aren't even thinking about that, but there could very well be some people that say, hey, you know what, I've been an official for years, but why do I want to go out and risk it and put myself in that scenario, especially if I'm in that 60-plus age group? I would venture a guess, and I'm just throwing a number out, but I'd say close to probably 50% of our folks are in that 60-plus age group that are officials currently. So that's almost half your officiating population there who is the most at risk to becoming infected with this. So yeah, that's definitely another thing that could put a damper on our plans there.
Let's be honest. We have the coaches, even just look at the screen. There's several of us that are 50 plus.
Right.
So, and there was a report today that the Minnesota Twins told 2 of their older coaches they couldn't coach this year because of their age. We got to work out. We want to protect the kids, but we also got to protect ourselves. I don't want to name names, Jerry, but we're not spring chickens either. We're all in our 50s here, except for Jennifer.
I'll turn my light on, guys. I feel bad. I'm in the dark.
I got a picture of it. Don't worry about it.
We know what you look like, Joe. Don't worry about it.
Joe was the confidential informant. I felt like we were doing something wrong.
It's all good.
Just send all your kids to me. I'll coach them I'm not in that age range where I have to worry yet. So.
I mean, it's something we all have to consider, though. I mean, we don't want our kids getting sick, but we sure as hell don't want us getting sick either.
Yeah, and you know, the husband and wife factor there too. I mean, that's going to have a lot of influence on these folks that saying, hey, don't too much risk, don't do it. You know, and there's just a lot to consider, and those are things that probably aren't going through people's heads that are really probably something that should be. I mean, in planning, we have to think about that and get the impact from the officials associations. You know, that the worst thing we could do is start a condensed season and say, hey, sorry, we can't cover your league games, and you know, because we don't have enough officials, and that I mean, that's even going to get people more upset, you know, having to deal with that in a shortened condensed season. So yeah, guys, these are all great questions that go beyond just the softball world. They go across the different sports as well.
So if you're not coaching at third, you're umpiring. That's the way it's going to have to be.
Yeah, there's a good strong possibility that we may have if it gets to that point, we may have a lot more games where two coaches agree to get behind the pitcher there and call balls and strikes. But
back to T-ball.
Yeah.
Well,
Joe, you interviewed for this job. Did you? Did you even fathom what you'd be getting yourself into?
No. Like I said, guys, I think we'd all be prepared if we knew the season was going. I mean, that's. I mean, when things are going fine, you can prepare. You know what's coming in front of you. That's the hardest thing I think for me is I don't know what's in front of us right now, and that's where it's the most challenging. So, yeah.
You can come back to Sweetwater if you want. Yeah, we'd be happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Although your position's been eliminated, I saw.
It has, yeah. So, very true.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, guys, I can come on again after the 20th and share like some highlights or some things that we get from these meetings that we're having, you know, and like I say, I'm hoping I can share good news with everybody, but I think even everybody I talk to is like, yeah, you're being positive as we all are, but the reality is it's going to take almost a miracle to say we're starting on time. So, you know, again, I'm not going to rule it out. I just want to make sure that, again, like everyone else, we don't jeopardize the health and safety of any of our kids or our coaches or our families. That's a priority to me. And if it takes a little longer to wait, then that's what we'll do. But
if it went to remote learning specifically, chances are we wouldn't have any high school sports. Would that be your best guess?
I just think it's too difficult for school districts to make that happen without transportation for kids to get to practice every day and do that or to games. I think that's just a real insurmountable mountain to get over for a lot of districts. I don't know how they could do it, but you know, again, that's going to be a district by district decision of how they can make that happen. And you know, I think a lot of folks will tell you it's an equity issue too, and it is for me. And you know, I come from one of those districts where, you know, we have all ends of the socioeconomic world in it, and you know, you can't think of just the haves. You got to think of the have-nots as well and what's best for them. And that's the great thing about our section. We're pretty diverse here, and you know, we got to make sure what we do is best for the entire section and not just for one district or another. And I know that's how the superintendents are going to look at it when they come to make that decision of whether or not they can play. I mean, they've got to take their entire district into consideration. So that's what we're doing as a section as well.
I've heard in the Poway district that they're giving the parents the choice. You know, and it's probably going to be some kind of hybrid thing where they come to school a couple days a week and they stay home, but they're giving them a choice. They sent out a big old
County Unified same way.
They sent out a big questionnaire. You know, you want your kid to stay at home and learn this way? You want them to come to school? What do you want them to do? You want to do this? You want to do that? So I would think it's going to be some kind of hybrid thing.
Yeah.
Where kids are on campus a couple days a week and then homeschool the other 3 days.
Yeah. I mean, as of today, I mean, that sounds good. I'm just hoping this thing doesn't keep getting worse. And they say, okay, so now we're not starting school on time, where we put out a plan to start schools. Let's push that back to, you know, October 1st now because of, you know, the chart going the wrong.
Knuckleheads in the bars.
yeah, exactly. So we'll see. Again, it's a great unknown, guys. It's a wait and see mentality for all of us.
Yeah.
So you brought up an interesting point regarding equity, and I'm just curious about, you know, I mean, and I don't want to, be, social economic, be, biased about this, but North County schools, versus South County schools. If the North County school says, hey, let's go, and the South County schools, because of where we're located, say we can't, the North County school is going to be allowed to say, oh yeah, go play, have have fun, while the South County schools are sitting around waiting. Does that fall within equity? I mean, I'd love to see the North County schools play, but I'm just curious how that would look from the CIF eyes.
That's going to have to be a discussion by all the superintendents, Mike. And, obviously the state county or the county superintendent, Paul Gothel, he may need to get involved in that conversation as well. But I wouldn't foresee us getting to a point where we get a green light to go and having that many, that many districts within our section not want to participate. If that's the case, then I would have a hard time going back to those commissioners meeting and saying, hey, I've gotten the word that, if we decide to go, 8 out of our 10 conferences aren't going to participate. That's real hard to say, to go back and tell everyone, hey, let's open the state when, it's not, we're not going to participate. So that's not what's best for our section. And I would assume, again, Mike, like you're talking about, it's similar in other sections around the state. There's areas that are, much better off than, other areas. Like I think of the southern section, they're all over the place. They have San Bernardino, they have LA, they have Orange County, they have places out in the mountains that aren't really affected. So, I mean, it's going to be a real challenge to be able to say, hey, all 10 sections are ready to go. We've got the clearance from the state, and we're not going to be impacted, or bits and pieces of our section won't be impacted. I don't. That's not an ideal situation. So that would take a lot of discussion from our board of managers of whether or not they really want to, if that's the best thing for us, having larger groups of kids who couldn't participate. So yeah, it's, I'm hoping it doesn't get to that, Mike, because that'd be real challenging to be able to navigate that, having just half the section be able to play and half the section not be able to play. I don't know what we'd do. I would take all my new commissioner powers to figure out how I'm going to mitigate that one.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Honestly, we have that issue. I mean, just in Seawater District between, West Side schools and East Side schools. I mean, the socioeconomics are completely different. Yep. So, I mean,
agreed.
Well, and it's going to be like we talked last week and the week before about fundraising. I mean, because a lot of these parents got laid off,
Mm-hmm.
So, and we're not going to have a lot of money. So, to even pay the officials, if you even have officials.
Yeah, so, the state budget's not looking real bright to say a big windfall of cash coming to schools for athletics. So lots of challenges.
Yeah. Coach for free, baby.
Yeah.
Are we already?
We do now, but that would be literal. We would literally coach for free.
You lose the 25 an hour you're already making.
Yeah, well, my beer money would be gone.
Yeah, that's right.
Your golf money, that's it.
Golf money, yeah.
Golf coaches don't have to pay, do they?
I don't play on the days the girls play. Some guys do, but I don't. I just watch the kids play. It's more fun. They can all beat me anyway, so.
That's what I was going to say, Jim.
I'd rather watch good golf than play bad golf. So.
Joe, you talked about softball being a medium risk sport. Is there a breakout of low risk, medium risk, and high risk sports? And I mean, I know you want everyone to kind of play, but it seems like if you could let low risk sports play on time, that would be less scheduling you would have to do in a modified spring schedule for those medium to high risk sports. So, yeah. I mean, you almost have to have that kind of mentality where, yeah, it doesn't seem fair, but if it's a low risk sport, it's a low risk sport. I mean,
yeah. And the state kind of categorized all the sports. If you guys go on the state website and look under the return to play guidelines, it has them all on there, what they, kind of the levels. Obviously the highest risk sports are the football, wrestling, the water polos, the basketball, and then everything else medium risk. And then obviously your tennis and your cross country and your golf are in the lower risk range. So there's the majority of our sports are in that medium risk. It's where softball's at. Even soccer, believe it or not, it's a medium risk sport. So yeah, I think that could be a conversation. If there's no way even, people are thinking that high risk sports would even happen in the fall or in the springtime, then you got to think of something else and think of what we can do and you know, you may have some first-time softball players out there that couldn't play another sport, but you know, I mean, it's a reality. So again, not knowing and not seeing where we're at and having to wait and see, it's tough to talk about, but it could get to that point. You know, it could, you know, especially if we already have an idea high risk sports aren't going to happen, then you go to plan B and figure out how you can make the other ones work.
I was talking with my roommate who's the grounds guy at Santana High School out here. I was curious, have the football coaches, let's say there's no football at all, let's just worst case scenario, has there been talk about just, you know, some kind of coaches taking the year off if there's no football to do to type like a developmental type deal with their kids any way possible if they're able to?
Yeah, I haven't talked to many football coaches that have looked that far down the road. I think they're all thinking, hey, they're all on some mentality that at some point we're going to play and have a season. So I think you'd have to be pretty far down the road and the outlook be pretty bleak for them to start thinking about alternatives. I wouldn't even want to talk to them about it, just only because I'm still optimistic that there's something there. And
don't want to bring it up.
Yeah. So I'm hoping we don't get to that point. But again, you know, like all these things we're talking about, all these different scenarios, it could get to a point where it's looking like, hey, it's not going to happen at all the whole year. And then they're going to have to think of something different. Mm-hmm. But yeah, could be. Again, I don't have a solid answer on those. Could be.
Well, we can just do like virtual NASCAR. We'll just play sports and virtual softball or something. I don't know.
There you go.
Madden high school football.
There you go. Yeah.
Esports takes over. Yeah. 2021, the year of esports.
That's right. Now I'm depressed.
Sorry, Mike.
Dang it, Joe.
Here, guys. You can blame Mike for bringing me on with all the good news.
I've been promising you for 2 weeks, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Well, we got a month. And if people can get their act together in a month, maybe things will get better. But if it keeps going the way it's gone the last 2 weeks, we're in deep trouble.
Definitely swimming upstream here a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, because it's just craziness. You know, I mean, you knew it was going to go. You knew the cases would increase once stuff opened up, but these people are just off the chart nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, thank God I don't live in Texas, at least.
Yeah.
Or Arizona right now.
Arizona, yeah.
But yeah.
Wasn't that where that first softball game was? We tried to watch on Facebook.
But there was at least, I mean, I know of at least 8 San Diego teams that were in Arizona this past weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at least 8. I mean, there are probably more, but I saw, I mean, just I'm Facebook friends with, you know, and I'm like, really, Arizona? That's where you're going?
Yeah, exactly.
What are these parents thinking? Are they like not thinking?
They're not.
They're not thinking.
No.
I mean, I know the coaches just want their cash, but what the parents got their heads buried? That's pathetic.
Well, I don't get paid.
I saw a baseball tournament going on when I was driving through Ohio yesterday, and I was jealous, but I was like, ay.
Well, some states like Iowa's having its high school softball and baseball season right now. I mean, they usually play
Iowa.
in the
That's
summer.
where I was. I was
they're
driving
playing this summer, and they're playing. They're having no issues. But Arizona's just been. I mean, and the thing in Arizona didn't just show up yesterday. It was going on a couple of weeks ago, and this team's still going out there. And I'm just like, you know.
Okay, so I have a question then, Joe. At Christian, and it's not high school. I believe, I'm not even sure what league it is. There's a league going on right now at Christian High School, a wooden bat league or something for baseball. How's that working out? I mean, how are they able to do that?
It's college.
Okay.
It's D1 college. They played last year at Cal State San Marcos. But they
the San Diego League is running it out.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a bunch of guys that are still trying to be pros or something to do during.
But it's on. But they're playing at Christian High School. And Christian High School is also running their football program.
Man, that's the responsibility of Christian High School, and they take on all the liability for that as well. How these adult leagues are doing that, I heard pretty loud and clear at this county meeting that adult sports are not cleared to begin yet. So they're doing so at their own risk, and as is Christian high school, if they're going to let those folks go out and play on their fields. I mean,
Sure.
They're playing 4 games a day out there.
It is. It's about 4 or 5 games a day.
Yeah. No comment on that, guys. That's all on them.
No, I was just curious.
That RB kid, Connor Little, he's the one that started the whole damn thing.
They actually asked me to announce, but they weren't going to pay me. So I was like,
Oh yeah.
I like working, but I don't like working for free.
All about money. Not for you, Mike, but for them.
I was giving them a deal too. I was going to give them a break, but they were like, "We can't give you anything." I'm like, "Well, can you pay me in Gatorade?" And they wouldn't even do that. So I'm like, "All right, I'm out."
I mean, your time's worth something.
Something.
Well, that and your health have to be worth something.
Yeah. No kidding.
I guess all we can do is keep our fingers crossed.
Absolutely, guys.
I mean, John, I'm going to put give us your gut feeling. Where are we at? If you had to make a decision today, where are we at?
If I was making a decision today, I would say the prognosis doesn't look very good. So, like I said, I'm planning on some big major reversal over the next couple of weeks, and everybody laughs at me when I say that, but I'm trying to be positive. I'm hoping the next couple of days there's some better. We start seeing the tide turn the other way and the curve moving back downwards. If not, if it's going up, I'd be hard pressed to think we'd be starting on time. I mean, that's just the reality.
I think we all know that. I think that's
we're going backwards right now as a state, and that's not helping our cause out.
Yeah,
it's not helping our cause.
Going backwards as a country.
Yeah, that's true. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting 4th of July, I tell you that.
Yeah.
Well, you won't be going to a bar, Tim, so don't worry about that.
It's a good thing I'm gluten free, so I can't have beer, so that's good.
Okay. I was gonna say you better get to the liquor store because you can't go to a bar.
Be lucky if our beaches stay open, to be honest with you, this weekend.
That's
true. Well, only bars that shut down were the bars that don't have food licenses. If they have a food license, they can still operate.
Yeah, so we were talking about that before you came on. Is that if you're a bar, just start serving carrot and celery. You're serving food. So.
Mad rush on pretzels.
You're gonna see a mad rush to the city for food licensing.
All of a sudden, or just have a food truck in your parking lot. We're selling food.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
There's always ways around all the rules, right?
That's how we're watching all those games you can play on Facebook now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Exactly.
Any other questions for Mr. Heinz?
Thanks, Joe. Any?
Good luck, buddy.
Thank you, guys.
Is anybody from the state going to give us any kind of recommendations for controlling things in our dugouts and things like that on our facilities?
It depends on what I'm assuming that's going to be directives from the state come out. Again, I don't know. Part of social distancing in a dugout; those are things that are supposed to be happening now. How much they're happening in the club and travel thing, I'm not seeing it, but I'm assuming there will be some directives that districts have to follow. And but again, I have no idea what those are going to look like. And with regards to sports, I think that's all just kind of a wait and see of how we're going to operate, and more importantly, who on the school site is going to manage that. I mean, that's obviously going to fall into the hands of our coaches, but we're not like a college program that has trainers running around everywhere that can help people out. That's unfortunately falls in your guys' plate. You got to not only manage running your team, but also the health and safety of all those kids and all those what and if any precautions are going to be taken, and sanitization, sterilization, all that stuff. I mean, you're really going to earn your 25 cents an hour this spring. So it's going to.
We're going to take donations and hand sanitizer and wipes.
Yeah, exactly.
Plastic collection baskets.
It's going to be like gold, guys. Yeah, you're going to need to, rally up 10, 12 team moms out there to help you guys out and run all your interference for you out there.
Can I ask a pandemic question? Because that's all we've talked about tonight.
Yeah.
Can I talk about transfers?
You can ask, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we're all. I mean, it doesn't happen in our sport a ton, but I mean, we're all involved in high school, and we all see the transfers between basketball and football primarily are the two biggest ones. I mean, do you see that trend? I mean, from a CIF perspective, do you see anything, you know, to mitigate some of the numbers we're seeing, or maybe not the numbers, but the quality of players that seem to be bouncing from place to place to place? And
yeah,
from your perspective, what's your goal with that? I guess would be the best way to describe it.
Well, obviously the importance of schools evaluating what's going on in their programs and what they're doing to make a great experience for their kids so they don't want to leave. I mean, that's first and foremost. You know, as long as you got kids that are happy being on your campus and have bought into your program and are thriving, that's important. And I think that's something that starts the top down, not just with the coaches, but the culture that's set at your school site with regards to athletics. You know, I know college doesn't help now, and you've seen all this stuff on Twitter because the days of battling for a starting position and, you know, losing your starting job. In the old days, kids would work hard and earn their spot back or fight for it. These days, if kids lose their starting job, they jump in the transfer portal and go somewhere else. So I think it's kind of become a little bit of a sports culture thing where things don't go your way, you just leave and go somewhere different. You know, you see a lot more kids, high profile kids doing those things, and families with means up and moving and doing things to create some competitive advantage for their kid. You know, again, that's tough for me coming from a school and a community down here in the South Bay that, you know what, you grew up and you played with the kids in your neighborhood and you went to school and you represented your school and your community. And while I still think that's thriving in some areas, other areas and other parents' mentality, it doesn't. So, you know, you're right, Mike. It does seem to be, you know, centered around basketball and football. I haven't seen too many golfers on KUSI. The top golfer leaves Torrey Pines to go to you know, La Costa Canyon or something. They don't show that very often, but you know, your band kid leaves your band to go from one school to another. You're not hearing about that. You're hearing about the high profile kids. So, you know what, you can just, you know, work with your schools. Again, make sure you have quality coaches, quality athletic programs at your school sites. Hopefully that's enough to keep kids to stay. But I just think it's the mentality. It's no different than the lawnmower parents these days. That starts at the club and travel level. I mean, I hate to, but you know, parents used to be helicopter parents and hover over it now. Now they're going to mow down any barrier that's in front of them to think that their kid's not going to have the competitive advantage they want. And that's unfortunately trickled up to high school now. And, you know, that's just something we got to deal with as a CIF section, and schools have to deal with it from their perspective as well. And, you know, do everything we can, ensure that kids are following the rules and doing it the right way. But, you know, it's definitely become more of a trend. And I think social media kind of glorifies that a little bit here with what's going on with kids and what they perceive as the best thing for them. So
I want to bat fourth and play shortstop, and I'm going to go to every travel team I get until that's what I get, and then that's where I'll play.
I'll pay whatever I
care
got.
whether that team sucks or not. But I get to bat fourth and play shortstop, baby.
Absolutely. Yep. That's the reality. And they take that carries right over to high school and that experience, you know, and at the end of the day, those parents realize that I did my kid a disservice because I bounced all over the place, and you know, they're thinking that's not how life works, unfortunately. And you know, kids are finding out that the hard way when they finish school, and that's all they've known. So it's the important of having quality coaches and teaching those lifelong lessons and parents that understand that, because I think that's a bigger challenge for you guys, not necessarily the kids, working with the parents and getting them to believe that. So it's not easy, guys. It's just, you know, and if you think it's going to go back to the old way, I think we're all crazy. I mean, it's just,
no, I'll never
we
get
gotta make sure we're doing everything we can to build quality programs and put it out there. And, you know, the unfortunate thing is I can think of handfuls of kids off the top of my head that made those moves and did that, and the grass wasn't greener when they got over there. And unfortunately, they wasted their time and did that. But there's no do-overs, you know, unfortunately, telling those parents you don't get to go do it again. So got to make the most out of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question or not, Mike.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I think,
philosophy 101 right
when you're
there.
answering it, I mean, I think, I mean, there was certain schools and certain programs that came to mind that don't support athletics as much as other schools and other programs. So, and I mean, I think we all have some in mind from our own areas that we know that we can point to say, you know, these are schools, we know why kids are transferring, put it that way. And I wish there was a way to, and I hear it on my campus as much as, there are teachers there that don't hate when my kids have to leave class to go to a game. I mean, they just don't understand why. And so I mean, it's on every campus. It's a matter of, and I think that as a coach takes away from the experience when these kids are all stressed because they know the teacher is going to give them grief from leaving. And how do you fight that battle if your admin isn't willing to go to bat for you on those? I'm not saying mine is, but
fight the battle when you've got positions going unfilled to start school years because there's just a lack of qualified applicants out there, and that even becomes more challenging. So, yeah, there's lots to it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's been brighter days.
There's only one way to go, and that's up.
Yeah,
right.
Right.
And I think we're lucky that we have Joe in that position, because I think that will definitely go that direction. I mean, I've worked with Joe for 6 years now, so I think I'm comfortable in saying that he's probably the best person for this job. And I'm glad that we're friends, because I know he'll come on whenever he's available to come on for this. So we got the right person in the right job. I just wish he would have left Sweetwater, but he is the right person for the job.
Well, and I hope you can also see that you have a very supportive coaching staff across the entire San Diego section here, and I'm hoping it's not just softball too. I hope baseball is the same way, football, track, golf. I hope they're all the same too, because it seems like you're going to have a good supporting cast behind you.
Absolutely. Hey, this is nothing that one of us is doing on our own, man. This is a team effort all the way top to bottom. So, we just gotta all get our boats rowing in the right direction here, in the same direction, and just hope we get back in the water. Let's just hope that happens. Those things going.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yes. Yeah, right. It would be sad deal if all the juniors from last year didn't get a senior year either.
Agree.
That'd be just horrendous.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. I have 6.
All right, guys.
I only have 2 because I just lost
me on, Mike. I appreciate it, Mike. I'll come on anytime you need me.
We appreciate your time. We'll check back in a couple of weeks after the 20th is over, and then maybe like first week of August or something like that.
Sounds good. Guys, be safe. Be safe.
Same to you. Stay healthy.
See you guys. Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Mike.
Sure. The plan is, guys, just so you know, next week since it's July 4th weekend, we'll take next Monday off.
Okay.
And then we'll do. I already have 2 guests lined up for the 13th. So
I'll be home.
Okay.
Who you got on the 13th? Fauci?
No, that was the last thing I want to talk about. So that was the last thing I want.
Jennifer, drive safe. You got a long way to go.
Yeah, be
Thank
careful
you.
On those crazy roads.
Gonna try to get home tomorrow. It's 13 hours left, so I'm gonna try to get home tomorrow.
Oh, so you're on the kind of the western part of Colorado, then, huh?
I'm in Vail. I'm right outside of Vail, on the west side of Vail.
All right, well, be safe.
When'd you leave New York? When'd you leave Albany?
I left on Friday morning.
Yeah. Is everything good now there, or?
It's getting better.
Oh,
it's getting better. I went out there. My stepmom was sick. She's getting better. She's on the upswing, so I felt comfortable leaving.
That's good. All right. Good to hear.
Well, be safe driving home.
Thank you.
All right.
Jen, I guess you used to coach one of my pitchers.
Oh yeah, who?
Malia.
Which one?
Malia Dela Cruz.
Oh yeah. How's she doing?
Doing good. She'll probably be my number 1 or number 1A next season. So
hopefully we have a season.
Hopefully we have a season. I want to see her pitch. So. All right, guys. Thanks for
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Stay safe, everyone.
Guys, have a good 4th.
Yep.
Stay safe.
Stay out of the bars.
Bye, Ronnie.
Good night.
See ya. All right, I'm out of here. How do you hang up?
All right, Jim.
Click the button.
I'll take care of that for you, Jim.
All right, thanks, Mike.
All right.